Let me be perfectly clear. When it comes to this weapon, I don't share your optimism.
It's the first time anyone's accused me of optimism.
Yes, well, I'll remind you your wife refused the idea of bringing the hammer back online. I would have thought you'd respect Anya's wishes.
I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that. For both our sakes.
Anya would have wanted you to...
You don't get to talk about her!
If that's what you think, I won't argue.
You and that goddamn fertility program.
A program that gave you your son. And mine. I honor Anya. I loved Anya. I don't care if you believe me. When my program was in its infancy, she came to me. She volunteered. Both times she volunteered. Seeing First Minister Stroud undergo treatment. Do you know how many children are alive today thanks to her? She should be buried here, you know, with the Allfathers. The people need her inspiration.
Your inspiration was my wife.
First Minister, Lieutenant Phoenix and his squad.
Send them in.
Yo, what's going on guys, it's Abs here and welcome back to another Gears of War lore video. So in this video I'm going to be talking about First Minister ANYA STROUD and the rebuilding of the new coalition of ordered governments. So as always, if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more Gears of War lore content, and yeah, let's dive straight into it. So firstly, let's talk about the rebuilding of the new coalition of ordered governments following the end of the Locust War. So at the end of the Locust War, Lieutenant Stroud was promoted to Major, and in the months after the end of the Locust War, the Locust bodies began to grow impenetrable crystal growths over their bodies. So therefore the bodies were unable to be destroyed, so Major ANYA STROUD oversaw the disposal of Locust bodies in numerous classified burial sites across Sierra. ANYA and Marcus oversaw the last burial at the Osmium Mine Bravo at Fort Revel in 18 AE, so only 1 year after the Locust War ended, was where the last of the Locust burials took place. And soon after, ANYA and Marcus solidified their affections by marrying. And then ANYA later became the first minister of the newly reformed coalition of ordered governments, and also with the assistance of the blonde genius, well he's not blonde anymore, but the genius Damon Baird and his newly invented technology, the new coalition set up camp in the ruins of Ephyra and began recycling the rubble to build on top new Ephyra. So in the remaining stranded camps in the city, First Minister Stroud met Mina Jinn, who was a young woman whose family was killed during the Hammer of Dawn strikes, and First Minister Stroud then convinced Mina to become her protege. For what reason, we don't know. Maybe ANYA saw something in Mina Jinn that she thought deemed Jinn worthy to be her protege perhaps. And also, despite the contribution of the Hammer of Dawn in winning both the Locust War and the Lambent Pandemic, ANYA forbid the recovery and rebuilding of the weapons, as she didn't want the horrific scenario of the Hammer of Dawn strikes to ever happen again. She didn't want to see the rebuilding of those weapons. And by 20 AE, so 3 years after the Locust War ended, Mina Jinn was appointed Minister of Procreation, which was basically to rebuild the human population. The reason why is because after the Locust War had ended, the human population was really thin. You know, first you had the Pendulum Wars, and then you had 17 years of conflict. Locusts just decimated so many humans. There were barely any humans left, so to continue they had to rebuild the human population, right? So Mina Jinn discovered the fertility program, which allowed barren and older women to procreate. And First Minister Stroud, formerly barren, so she was unable to have kids before, she was among the first to undergo treatment in Minister Jinn's fertility program. And this resulted in the successful pregnancy of her and Marcus's son, who was of course James Dominic Phoenix, who was named after the legend Dominic Santiago. And ANYA's treatment inspired the women of the new coalition to also undergo treatment and help repopulate humanity. So Anya was a woman of inspiration, and as Anya was one of the first people to undergo the treatment of the fertility program, lots of other women followed as well. Anya had given birth to James Dominic Phoenix in the Stroud estate, but then she continued to act as First Minister, and Anya spent most of her time in New Ephyra, while Marcus spent most of his time tending to the land and living at the Stroud estate. So Marcus, he was just vibing out at the Stroud estate, right? Doing Marcus things, and he retired, but he also had trust issues with the coalition as well, and even when Anya was First Minister, he still had issues with the coalition. And during this time, JD spent most of his childhood in a boarding school in New Ephyra, and at this boarding school he met Delmont Walker, who was a fellow student, and Del was an orphan and ward to the state, and JD and Del became very close friends, and the Phoenix family essentially acted as Del's family, and that sort of reminds me of how Marcus used to spend a lot of time with the Santiagos. And later in 27 AE, so around about 7 years after JD was born, First Minister Stroud chose to have another child, and she went to Minister Jinn once again to undergo another fertility treatment. However, due to unknown causes, Anya died during the program, which was really unfortunate, but we don't know what these reasons were. And for me personally, it was a bit sad to see Anya die off screen. She's been such a staple of the franchise since Gears 1, and she's been so closely tied into Marcus's story as well, who is of course the main character of the whole franchise. So seeing her die off screen was a bit disappointing, but that's just my personal opinion really. So instead of Anya being buried with the Allfathers in New Ephyra, Marcus buried Anya on the land of Stroud Estate, and Jinn didn't want this because Jinn wanted Anya to be the symbol of inspiration for the next generation. So she basically didn't want Anya to be buried at the Stroud Estate. And Anya's death caused Marcus into a severe depression, and Marcus isolated himself from his friends including Baird, Sam and Augustus Cole as well for a long time. And you got a feel for Marcus, you know, he lost Ty, he lost Dom, he lost Benjamin Carmine, he lost Adam Phoenix, and then he loses his wife as well. You got a feel for Marcus, man. And Marcus going into a depression also put a strain on his relationship with JD. Marcus was unable to process his grief with his son, and this caused JD to resent his father for not being there for him during the tough times of losing his mother. And JD continued to attend the boarding school in New Ephyra, where JD further resented his father, and he put deeper loyalty into his friend Del. And after JD graduated, he revealed to Marcus that he and Del would be joining the COG, and this caused Marcus to disown JD because Marcus didn't trust the COG. However, after the settlement to massacre, which was basically a settlement to protest, and it turned into a massacre at the hands of the COG, this was around 6 months before the start of the Swarm War, so Marcus told JD and Del not to go outsider when they came to him because Marcus knew that the COG would hunt them down. But JD and Del didn't listen, and they joined Fort Umson under Chief Reyna Diaz. And after First Minister ANYA STROUD's death, the COG began to favour authoritarian control over civic-minded rebuilding. Because when Anya was in charge, she wanted to rebuild humanity. She was one of the first to take the fertility program. She didn't want the Hammer of Dawn weapons to be rebuilt. She was a great leader for humanity. But after she died, the COG went to their old ways again, by the looks of it. And this caused many citizens to permanently distrust and cut ties with the coalition of ordered governments and joining the outsiders. And even those that were still loyal to the COG also began to criticise the COG's rulings that went against the former First Ministers. And a lot of those criticisms resulted in the large protest at Settlement 2. And when this protest was taking place in Settlement 2, First Minister Jinn ordered Gears and DBs to fire on civilians. Also, a statue was erected in Anya's honour in the government house, but her grave still resides on the Stroud estate, and First Minister Mina Jinn continued offering to relocate Anya into New Ephyra with the Allfathers to give the citizens inspiration and hope, but Marcus was disgusted and angered by this offer, and Marcus said that Anya was his wife and she didn't belong to anyone. So there you have it guys, that's First Minister ANYA STROUD, as well as the reconstruction of the coalition of ordered governments explained. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and comment down below of what you think of Anya and the reconstruction of the COG, and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and be sure to check out my playlist for all Gears of War lore content. Hope you guys have a nice day, and I will catch you on the next one.